All right, we're at the 5 minute mark, so I guess we can get started. For those of you who are back, welcome back. I still see some familiar faces and some new ones as well, I guess. Yeah, the request is the same as always. Do turn your video on. Let's keep this interactive. And if you could get onto the Menti, let me present it. What was the presentation? I think, yeah, full screen. Yeah, if you can get onto the Menti site, um,
You can
that'll be
also
great.
copy the link and paste it in the chat, I guess.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Chat. Yep. So you'll have the Menti link in your chat. Uh, do log in. We have like a couple of questions again, just to get warmed up and make sure that we at least do a little bit of a quick recap of like where we left off last time and then pick it up from there. See, 3 4 folks who have logged in. I imagine you can log in. I don't have to be on the screen. You can just keep asynchronously logging in. All right. So let's see. Let's start off with like the first question was, this is like a pop quiz for you, just to uh, recollect what today's reading was or the assigned reading on the modules page. Yeah, if you can describe it, name it, whatever. And this is again just to get you all aware that there are these readings. It's good that you also read these documents besides just listening to what we have to say, because there could be some nuances which, when reading, it may stick more strongly with you than like listening to like whatever we have to say. So now's the time when you can actually spend time reading and like getting all this information. But then again, we'll put in our usual caveats saying that, yeah, we should probably stop reading at some point, because after a point, it just doesn't make. Uh, yeah, I hope you did. Whoever has answered it, I hope they didn't copy it from the web page itself. But sure, I mean, even if you have, that's great. This is all to just to get you aware that, yeah, there is this reading links that have been put out over there. It doesn't necessarily cover the same stuff that has already been written out in the course webpage. So yeah, only one of you who seems to recollect what today's reading was. Okay, all right. Let's move on. So yeah, today's reading was essentially identifying whom to work with, and that's the general skill that we'll pick up and we'll talk about in some more detail today. But can someone share the Menti meeting code? Let's see. There you go. So, and today's reading especially was like how to write emails, some of which we already exercised even yesterday. We saw a bit of it and we had started discussing it. And this link is, again, it's not rocket science. It's again things that we may have already discussed shades of, but this is just puts it in words. So yeah, there you go. It's all in one place. For module 3, have you read the content on the course webpage? Again, this is just to remind you that there is this course webpage which has all these different modules which we are anyway talking about, and the content is not necessarily exactly in line. Most of it is, but then yeah, reading those details, there could be probably 1 or 2 links over there. Just going through that, just getting a sense of like how it has all been structured is just a useful exercise for you to be spending time on. So, and of course, I mean, be honest with yourself, this is more like a exercise for you than for me. And if you haven't, let this serve as like a quick check and reminder that, yeah, there is this resource. You should probably be spending some time on it and like going through it. All right, so some 5 of you have responded. The majority is no. So I would strongly urge you, even if you haven't read the first 2 ones, because the first 2 ones just lays out the broader philosophy, which we have, I think, been over like a couple of times now. But modules 3, 4, and 5 is where you actually have like a lot of specific, relatively specific information. So you'll likely find it useful over there. There's something going on Discord. Okay, this okay. Um, all right. So this is again going back to the first question that we asked in yesterday's finger exercises as to whether you have a web page. And hopefully the homework should have at least prompted you to create at least like a dummy web page, if not like anything serious. And if you haven't turned in your homework, that's fine. I know a lot of you reached out saying you would rather use some time because you have your courses and whatnot. Totally understandable. The exercise again of like turning in your homework so that we can, I mean, one of the aims is we can go through it, provide any helpful comments for you, and probably use that as also tools to discuss things in the class. So some of you did submit your responses to the homework, and we will pick up like one or two examples from there and just talk about it in the class. Again, this is not like a thing to, it's not like a public shaming or anything of that sort. It's just our current like state where we are, and it's like a very common thing that most of us, 99% of us will do. And just having this exercise will hopefully make us more confident and like put in those hours in like trying things out. So it's just good exercise for you as well to communicate and like um, have these little sort of experiences of like doing things rather than just like reading about it or like listening to it and listening to what I have to say about it. All right, so 50% of you don't have a web page. So, okay, fair enough. Again, the goal is you probably should, and it's like a good thing for you to have your own web page. Keep it simple. Don't worry too much about like how fancy it is, and focus on the content that you want to document and use that as a place to serve as like a accountability sort of measure for you to put stuff up and constantly record what you're doing. Because like we have mentioned over and again in this course, it simply does not matter if you come and tell me, look, I enjoy this subject. I have like read your book. I have listened to your lectures. I've gone through two other lectures which are similar to this. All that is like hot air. All that is kind of pointless if you cannot show me concrete things that you have done using that knowledge. So you could tell me, yeah, I've read this course, and based on this course, I implemented this, let's say, fast Fourier transform that I learned in this course in this little application that I have built, or like something else. So that's the larger aim to get you to have a website, is to make sure that you remind yourself that yeah, there are concrete things that I need to do, and I can put the links or details of these concrete things on the website over there. So all right, that's we have like a yeah 50% split. So do spend time on like making a website for yourself. So all right, so now let's spend actually 5 minutes and exercise this faculty of communicating concisely, because this is like a recurring theme. It'll keep showing up over and again in like various ways, whether you're communicating over email, whether you're writing a paper, you're writing a blog post, you're writing whatever. As soon as you have to communicate an idea that is present in your head to someone else and to the world, you'll find it to be fairly non-trivial. One, because you need to have like appropriate like language skills, in the sense that you need to be able to express that idea with just enough number of words so that the core of the idea is conveyed. And two, you need to undo some habits. We all have some habits of like using long words, using fancy words, which could have been very simply conveyed using like other sets of words which everybody understands. So let's try this out. Let's try this one small exercise. It's a 2, 3 sentences, small sentences. Uh, what's the way to get this image in? Okay, sorry. Press S to show the image. Okay, great. I hope this is visible and it's not too small, but take a minute, take 2 minutes, read what the image, I mean, like what the sentence is and what the core idea that is being conveyed in the sentence, and try to convey it yourself, but convey it in a way which is simple, which gets to the point very quickly, and probably doesn't have to be this long and doesn't have to use so many words. So that's the goal. And this is like a simple exercise, not related to technical stuff, but it gives you a sense of what the kind of faculties or skills that you will need to practice and train and hone for you to be able to communicate your ideas. So yeah, this is not a writing course. I hope your college has like a writing course which you should take if there is. And it just all these exercises are for they serve as forcing functions for you to think sharper, think clearer, remove all fluff, and convey something concisely. So I'll stay quiet for like 2 minutes, read this, and like keep draft your answer and like type it in, and let us all like read through it and compare notes. And if you've already submitted something, you could, yeah, please don't use the chat. You could just push it out on Menti if possible. Uh, so,
You may have
all
to.
right, there are some, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that you would have to hide the image to see the responses. But
Yeah. Got it. Thank you. Yeah. So people seem to have responded. So let's see. Let's read a couple of these and uh, see what people have to say. DU lost cricket match against Meghalaya because some players couldn't throw spin. Okay. Delhi University's cricket team failed the final against Meghalaya due to some players unable to spin the ball. Okay. DU players were not able to spin ball frequently, hence they failed against. Yeah. DU lost the Meghalaya team in the final game was primarily due to the poor performance of the spinners. Because of poor performance of spinners during the match, the team Meghalaya has won over Delhi University because some players were okay. I think one person has got the uh, critical detail wrong here. So in the sentence, Meghalaya. Oh yeah. Sorry, against the team from. Okay, yeah. You're right. The Meghalaya team lost. Yeah, Delhi University doesn't have spinners, but doesn't now. See, now this is like a fabrication of like details. So nowhere in the document was like a lack of spinners mentioned. There could have been spinners, there could not have been spinners. It's just that on that particular day, people did not spin. So there's no information on whether there were or were not spinners. Delhi University lost to the Meghalaya team in the final game. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so most of you get the gist right, and most of you are able to like recognize that, yeah, the reason for the failure of the cricket team of Delhi University, you see the number of prepositions here for the failure of the cricket team of Delhi University in the final game against the team from Meghalaya was that on that day. So this entire sentence itself is too long and clunky. And the core idea is, yeah, there was a cricket match between Delhi University and Meghalaya, and it was the finals, and Delhi University lost, Meghalaya won, and because it was most likely the spinners weren't able to spin the ball, or like the ball wasn't spinning. These pretty much are the four details that need to be conveyed. And recognizing that and conveying that simply is, it'll seem obvious, But when we start writing these ideas for ourselves by ourselves, we usually tend to write this kind of stuff. We usually tend to write like fairly wordy because it's a hard skill because you're thinking thoughts and you're trying to translate that into some words. And usually it ends up being very verbose, very sort of unorganized. And it takes time to first write out that first draft, then do this exercise of what we are doing, saying, okay, let me now carefully, closely read what I've written and let me try to edit it and let's try to get to the gist of it. So yeah, Delhi University's cricket team failed the final against Meghalaya due to some players being unable to spin the ball. That's essentially it. That's the crux of it. DU lost because some players couldn't throw spin or whatever. Okay. So yeah, I'm glad because certain players were consistently unable to spin the ball. Yeah, again, this all these are extra details. Consistently was there consistently over there? Were frequently unable to spin the ball. So this frequently has now become consistently, which carries its own meaning. So just say, yeah, because certain players were unable to spin the ball, Meghalaya, or even certain players also need not be mentioned. So some players were frequently unable to spin the ball. So yeah, okay. Because certain players were unable to spin the ball, Meghalaya defeated Delhi or Delhi University lost to Meghalaya. Fair enough. So this is great. So clearly, all of you are on the same page when it comes to like identifying these kind of redundant pieces of information being conveyed. And that's an important skill which you need to exercise in your own writing, be it like emails, be it whatever. And it'll keep coming up more often than you think it does. So we'll go through some exercises where we'll do like a peer review of some of the submissions, the homework submissions, and let's try to exercise some of these skills over there as well and see how we can improve as a group. Fair enough. Was there anything else? No. Okay. So let's resume and let's go back to our slides. And all right. So where we left off was modules 1 and 2. We just talked about research, the larger goal, the big picture you need to keep in mind. Don't go behind like all these degrees saying, oh, I need to do a PhD, I need to do a master's. Think first, evaluate whether you do have any research experience. If you do, if you don't, then your goal should primarily be focused on getting that experience first, and then worry about like, okay, should I now consider like a master's, PhD, what to do? So think about like that's what the first two modules try to emphasize. And in the previous module, in the last class, we kind of ramped it up a little bit where we said, okay, sure, let's say you have decided that, yeah, you're probably curious, you have all those little traits to go ahead and like do your own little investigations and try things out. Now, how do you translate that into now, does that mean you should like start off right away, start off like doing a research project? And we said probably not. There is still like an amount of baggage and skills that you need to pick up before you dive into your like first project. And what those skills are, some of the things that we spoke of last time was learning to take initiative, and we saw some concrete instantiations of this initiative, saying that okay, don't wait for people to tell you what to do. You need to pick stuff up on your own, try to decide what you really want, and like keep like committing like certain actions which will lead you closer to the goals that you have in your mind. And the whole point that was being emphasized over and again was stop worrying about like how many courses you read or like the kind of knowledge that you're gaining, but focus more on building your portfolio. Develop stuff concretely, write stuff down, write proofs, do things, and that doing has to get documented in like a web page or something. And to as like something more concrete, we said that yeah, start off probably with your coursework. That should help you identify projects or like little areas which you can go ahead and like have your little excursions and try to figure out like, is there anything interesting over there, and build small implementations, concepts, proofs, etc. around those areas, and just get a sense for it. And that should be a good first step. And after that, you if you have like access to professors in your own university or in your own department who are doing interesting work, work with them, get a sense for what work this kind of work entails. If not, the suggestion was do some more work, apply to your summer research programs. Many universities do have summer research programs. Apply to them, which I'll talk about in some more detail in the next module, where we actually have details about these resources and so on. So there could be a summer research program, there could be a winter research program. You could probably reach out to some of the profs in some universities who may be having like an active research agenda, but they're looking for like interns to help them out for like 2 months or 6 months or whatever. So that's the natural way. There is really no other way. In case you don't have access to these kinds of resources in your own school, then you have to go outside and probably seek them out. But it is well worth that effort, I believe, because it will at least ground your expectations on like what research is and what that kind of like a journey will entail. And then we briefly touched upon like loneliness and imposter syndrome being these devils that will take absolutely no effort to kick in, and
Hello, sir.
everybody. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I want to say, but we can create one team and we will work on it to do one project. This.
You mean as part of this course?
Yes, sir. We will work on one project.
Okay, feel free to work on it. Unfortunately, I don't think the course structure that we have right now can accommodate like us mentoring you on any project or whatever. But sure, I mean, if you want to work on a project, you should find a team. If you think anyone over here wants to team up, sure. But again, think of it less as a team activity, because all of you, you're probably just starting off. So it's much better and much more advisable that you start alone, try to figure some things out, get some sense of skills, some set of skills, and then consider teaming up and like pushing towards like an agenda. But sure, I mean, if it helps you to work in a group where you're all figuring these details out by yourself, sure. I mean, you should have access to the Discord channel. Feel free to befriend others over there, ping them, say hi, and like try to team up or whatever. That's totally up to you. But yeah, the goal over here is at least to lay out what the recipe is, and how you implement that recipe is completely up to you. So yeah.
So we will
So
present the ideas for the project. Then we will set up one team. Otherwise, we will come on a common conclusion to develop an app or something.
okay, so here's the thing. You could feel free to do all that. What I'm trying to convey to you is, unfortunately, we won't be able to accommodate like actually mentoring you for like a project in this version of this course. So yeah, feel free to come up with ideas, brainstorm, etc. The fact that you say you want to write an app is probably not the best way to get started, because there is more to this, more to computer science than just apps. So I would like strongly encourage you to first get a sense, go through this content, first get a sense for what it is that is being conveyed. And then we can, of course, chat about it some more in the next module. But the idea is that it shouldn't just be like a software development kind of like a project, but rather something more in line with like something more researchy, where you're trying to use knowledge that you already have and trying to solve problems that exist out there, or you're trying to implement a paper, or you're trying to just get your hands dirty with getting started with how this community thinks about like solving problems. So writing an app may be relevant for certain kinds of research problems, but if you already have like saying, if that's the core sort of direction that you want to probably explore, then I would say that yeah, probably that's more software, and then you should consider like some of the other things that we'll cover in the class today and tomorrow, and then think about like how you want to start over.
Okay,
Cool.
sir.
So yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Then we also said managing your coursework might end up being hard, because yeah, you have to do coursework, you have to do this, so you have to kind of become more mature in trying to say yes to certain things and no to certain things, saying, okay, this is what I need to spend my time on versus these are things that I don't want to spend time on. So that's something for you to think about and like reckon. And yeah, I was talking about loneliness and imposter syndrome. These are all like probably okay. I'll talk a little more about this. I think we just started off, and I'll briefly like finish this aspect in a slide or two. Yeah, kudos to, by the way, Ambut Singh. I don't know if folks noticed this on the chat or like on Discord, but Ambuj has generously, yeah, contributed like by annotating the YouTube video for the second module. So I'm assuming he must have gone through this, and in the process of doing so, has also helped us all out by just annotating this and posting it as a comment. We'll see. We'll try to get this cleaned up and probably get it added to the description itself. That's something that I'll probably work on. But it's great. We can't thank you enough. Truly appreciate your effort. And if others as well, if you're going through the video anyway, please do consider just annotating it. Just simple annotations like these. That will greatly help your friends and peers who may want to visit this video at some other date. So yeah, thanks again, Ambuj. I'm not sure whether you're on the call, but yeah, thank you. So this is what some of you had to say based on the feedback that some of you submitted for the last lecture, and many of you didn't. Please do. And again, the aim is to really gauge how much you've understood versus what you're taking away from these modules, and also for us to course correct and improve and like make sure that the content lands right with you. So the first person said, yeah, maintaining a portfolio, that was the key take back or like key takeaway. Effective ways to actually improve technical writing and communication through issues like Stack Overflow and posts and stuff. How to do research, how patient you need to be, qualities that need to be attained as a researcher. This seems a little broad. Again, so when think of this as like a writing exercise in itself, where someone is asking you, okay, what have you learned? Or what did you pick up from this particular module? And this probably slightly more generic. I hope our content wasn't this generic and the message was slightly more pointed. And it's an exercise for you yourself to try to articulate exactly the core of the crux of what was conveyed or what you thought was conveyed and what you picked up. How to cold email more effectively to professors. I hope so. This is again. I hope all the talk about email doesn't come across as like an effort to just help you write better emails. Sure, that is like a subsidiary goal of you improving how to communicate over email. But these are not some tricks or strategies or like clever ways that some trade secrets that we're revealing to you, which you can use to start talking to a professor. That's not the spirit in which we want to convey this information, and that's not the spirit in which you should be consuming this information. But rather, we're trying to convey to you how a typical professor who's busy with like 10 things on their plate would receive and would like respond to a typical email. So we are trying to provide to you the perspective of how a prof views this entire world, what lens they have on it, and what will probably make most sense to even get a prof engaged. And this is assuming that you want to talk to this prof because you have something concrete to say, not because you want to write and show off and saying, oh, hire me, I'm this little kid over here who wants to work with you. That may be an ulterior sort of aim, but when you usually start your communication, what we're emphasizing is don't start a communication for the sake of it. Don't start speaking to a professor for the sake of it, but rather the assumption here is you've done your homework, which we'll talk in much more detail today, and you have interesting things to communicate, and you've found out some interesting things, which is what you want to communicate to the prof. Or it could be a one-way communication saying, hey, prof, I've tried this, and these are some cool results that I have. Here you go. Whether they want to do something with it or not, totally up to them. Or you've tried something, and then as a consequence, you have a question about that work saying, yeah, I tried this, I implemented this, but I did not really understand why you're doing X or why you're doing Y. So let me try to, and can you please help me out with this? That's one way to engage with them. So these are like natural ways to get someone to engage with you. And yeah, these are not, you're not playing a trick on them. You're not like getting them to engage just so that they like you and then they'll get you to hire, get to hire you. But rather, these are ways in which you actually learn about a subject much more. You could be talking to 20 profs, but only one of them may actually resonate with you. And as a consequence, you want to go ahead and like do something about that engagement that you've built. So that's the perspective. That's the perspective as we are communicating this information to you. So I briefly mentioned this the last time. These are also, I feel, like important yet these are we don't train ourselves concretely on these skills, and unfortunately, nobody tells us that these may likely be kind of prerequisites. It's not the end of the world if you don't know these before you start a project, but just knowing these things makes life much, 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 much easier. That is the reality of it. And these are things like just working with like a Linux-based environment, because, and the reason why I mentioned this is most of academia likes to share what they build and what they develop. And Linux is like a platform which is probably, I think Windows is catching up these days, but it's just like easier to package things. The way to install things is much easier. You have a lot more flexibility on the kinds of packages and like libraries that you can install on your machine. And it's just easy to distribute code and systems and implementations using like a Linux-based environment. That's why the whole world, and of course it's free, or like flavors of it are free. So Windows, not everybody has Windows because yeah, you need to pay to have like a Windows license, most of us. And because of that, usually Windows is the, I mean, sorry, Linux is the preferred like environment, like a GNU Linux kind of flavor. And that's why, and it's a beast of its own where you need to get used to certain concepts that Linux is built around. And it takes a while. And if you're like a complete beginner, you'll probably struggle with it like for a week or two. But yeah, so you would want to have some exposure to Linux and Linux kind of environments rather than starting up completely new to all of this. Git version control, so source code control and version control is again something central to most of like computer science implementation kind of tasks. So given that you're starting off, you're very likely not going to immediately start like writing out papers which are very theoretical. You'll probably have some implementation aspect to it. There could be theoretical stuff if you're in like theoretical computer science or like applied math or something like this. Not even applied math, like so probably more pure math. You'll probably be sufficient writing stuff on pen, paper, LaTeX, whatever. But mostly you will be writing code, and if you're writing code, you're much better off knowing it than not knowing it. Tools to search literature. Again, you should go through the web page. You should go through this particular link that actually lists out like concrete resources for each of these. So literature search, there are few standard tools which people use for searching and managing and stuff. Do go through it, learn how to use it. It's not that it's not the end of the world if you don't know how to use these. But instead of just Googling something, you'll find that like a semantic scholar or like a Google Scholar or some of these specific tools to search literature, they'll probably serve you better than like just vanilla Googling or like using a search engine. These are like little things which help you pick up like good habits in some sense. So meeting notes. So whenever you meet with like, let's say your professor, mentor, advisor, whoever, make it a habit to write what that meeting was about and again, exercise your writing skills in being concise and precise. Don't just like write, like saying, oh, we met today and we discussed that we'll be doing X tomorrow. No, that's not really a meeting note. A meeting note should be able to help you recollect fine technical details, even if you're reading it after like a month or two. And that's really the reason for maintaining these kinds of logs, because over like a course of like a typical project, you will likely change, you'll make so many decisions that it's yeah, I agree with Neil. I mean, effective note taking is a course on its own, and every sort of person that I work with, usually it takes us like 2-3 weeks just to speak the same language on like what should be in like a good note versus what isn't. And it's a learning curve. It's fine. I mean, it's everybody learns. I've learned it. There's no like special sort of. It's not a special skill, but it takes deliberate like thinking and like practice to get it right. So yeah, just like concise notes to help you remember what you discussed, what you plan to do in the next meeting. So it's good practice. It's healthy practice to have this meeting note. So you meet on like a day X, you look up your meeting notes from your previous meeting and you actually go through it with your mentor, because they have 50,000 things going on in their lives. They probably may not remember all the details that you discussed with them. So just putting out this, like opening up this meeting note and saying, okay, these are the 10 things that we discussed last time, and this was my action item. I wanted to go and try out X, and these are the results I'm going to show you now, and we are going to discuss about this now. That's a great way to get started with any meeting. And I love it because it just makes it so much easier to just for my RAM to get refreshed because I would have probably been thinking about something else, and like something else might have been catching my attention more recently. And this is like a good way to clear that cache and like load in all the new stuff, or load in all the context from the previous meeting. So that's their calendars. I think most of you are used to calendars, but if you're not, again, this is like a very easy way. You don't have to install any fancy apps. Google provides it, Gmail provides it, all your mail services provide it. And just like using calendars to remind yourselves of the task that you need to do. I know some people who even put out things like, I need to take some rest, I need to go work out, I need to not work. And even these things are marked out on the calendars. It works for some, it doesn't work for some. It's totally up to you. But again, use this as a tool to just organize your life and thoughts. That's pretty much the message over there. LaTeX, again, I've put all these stars over here because all these things can be picked up even when you start off a project. It's not going to hurt you, or it's not going to feel overwhelming, because again, one of the reasons why I mention these, and it's advisable to sort of pick up a few of these skills before you get to a project, because once you get started with some project, there are already so many new things that you're dealing with. The project domain may be new, your mentor may be new, so your mentor may be demanding things which are completely out of your comfort zone, so as to just skill you up. And all those would be new and overwhelming. So why do you want to add more new things to it when you can probably just get comfortable, be used to this, and not even have to worry and think about it? So that's the perspective. That's the real reason why I believe some of these things are very sort of basic. Nobody, and these are fairly basic to the extent where they won't even teach you. They can be just assume that, yeah, you will know this. If you don't know it, you'll pick it up in a day. But some of these things will take a little more than a day. So just get used to sort of getting this in your daily work activities, and that'll just make life easier when you actually need to focus on like your core project material stuff. Likewise, LaTeX, it's a authoring tool, or like it's a formatting tool, just like HTML for like math and equations kind of stuff. Graphics software, I think we discussed this in a comment yesterday or 2 days ago, where if someone wants to come up with like fancy diagrams for their blog and whatnot, is yeah, it's useful. Reading papers, it's a whole different skill, and I put out like a link which actually is a paper on how to read papers. Again, don't worry about all that. You can cross that bridge when you get there. These are again just things to keep in mind that you'll probably be required to pick up these skills at some point. Yeah, there's a comment on writing a daily diary on your research work when doing a PhD. Again, we're not there yet. We're not like in a PhD or whatever. But yeah, in general, it's good to just log your thoughts. It's good to think about stuff deliberately and write them down. Use your webpage to, in fact, document such thoughts. These are not personal diaries. These are like technical diaries that you're trying to maintain. So show people that you actually like put in the effort every day, a little bit, bit by bit, and build up to like a good portfolio. Cool. So moving on, imposter syndrome is something that I'd started off with. I'd probably discussed loneliness, and imposter syndrome is also kind of like a related evil where you just feel that you don't belong. So let's say you're the best in your high school, and then you get into undergrad, and then you realize that most of the people around you are as motivated as you or as driven as you, and they're probably, in some sense, you may qualify them to be better than you. And then that creates like an existential threat in many of us, saying, oh no, am I supposed to be here? I think I'm like a fraud. Imposter is essentially this feeling of being a fraud, that, oh no, I must have lucked out, and look at this, it's because of my luck that I'm here, and most of these other people are just so much more smarter and intelligent than me, that they deserve to be here, and probably I'm not as deserving. Unfortunately, no matter how qualified you are, it's a function of like just general self-confidence, and it happens to all of us. Don't be under the impression that, let's say, someone who's gone to the quote unquote has the best pedigree or best qualifications that you can imagine. It's very natural even for them to feel the same when they meet someone with, let's say, 20 more years of experience more than them, who has more authority on a field. And then they'll say, oh no, have I lucked my way into this? And because this person clearly knows more than me. So I think the first step to imposter syndrome is just acknowledging and like realizing and recognizing that yes, what you're experiencing and what you're thinking about is likely just a case of imposter syndrome. It's yeah, definitely something that you can greatly help, or like it greatly helps if you even acknowledge and recognize it for yourself than someone else telling you that yeah, this is probably what you're experiencing. And of course, from there you need some pillars of support. You need to have like some community which encourages you, is genuinely encouraging and like boosting your confidence and making sure that you're self-confident and you're like not bowed down by all these external factors. And these communities could come in terms of like parents, friends, families, partners, peer group, whatever, or more formally in terms of like a therapist, a counseling counselor, etc. And seek them out. Seek them out. If you're constantly feeling undervalued, or if you're constantly feeling under-equipped, that oh no, is this even possible by me? Oh no, is this can I even do this thing? I think this is just too hard for me. These are all cases of like general lack of confidence and like imposter syndrome in like various forms. And if that is indeed the case, and if you constantly feel this, and if you're like weighed down or being bowed down by these kinds of feelings and thoughts, then it is quite advisable to just get help. I mean, seek out help. These are not new situations. Humans have existed for the last how many ever years, and this is like a known sort of condition. I wouldn't even call it condition. This is like a known pattern of thoughts that everybody goes through, and it takes like effort, and it takes like conscious effort to make sure that we don't fall prey to our own sort of this vicious ways of thinking. So yeah, seek help. That's the best advice to probably part with on this topic. And there should be resources. Yeah, I can relate to a lot that I always feel like I don't belong there. Yeah, no, exactly. So it's much more common. It's much more common than you imagine. I know friends over here who feel the same way. It comes up everywhere. And the only way to sort of step aside it is doing these little acts which constantly keep improving your self-confidence by solving little problems, writing little code, by doing all these little activities, which tell yourself that, yeah, I can do this. I actually did this. And you'll find probably 10 other people be able to do it 10 times faster than you to begin with. But if you just stick to it, you'll likely be, yeah, just as comfortable as like anyone else around you. And that those are the kinds of little things that boost our confidence and like makes us believe. This concept of self-belief, super important, and it can make or break a person. And those are the informal things that you can, little acts that you can do. But more formally, I think it's also very much advisable, and it's in your interest to just seek professional help. And they just, yeah, a counselor or a therapist will just give you like some tools to play with, saying, okay, if you're thinking like this, think about like what is the last thing that you did, etc., etc. So whatever, they'll have their own way of like addressing or helping you cope with it. So yeah, that's my note on imposter syndrome and general loneliness and these kinds of situations that we most likely find ourselves in if we are going down this path. All right, so this is the core of today's module, and this is the core message that I want to like send across. We discussed saying, okay, yeah, before you reach out to a prof, probably there are these 5-10 things that you need to pick up. Concrete CS skills like Git and later can all these things being some of them. It's a subset. And there were some intangible skills, or like, yeah, intangible skills like grit and like being tenacious and being resourceful, taking initiative. Those were on the abstract spectrum. On the very concrete spectrum were skills like Git and like Linux and these kinds of things. But somewhere in between is this all-important task of actually getting work done and making sure that you really have like a concrete sense of like a particular topic before you even consider reaching out to anyone. So the use case right now that I'm going to discuss is you have kind of liked a couple of courses. You believe that, yeah, this is interesting and I want to try out research, but you don't have active mentorship. You don't have someone whom you can just walk up to and say, look, in your college, in your department, who's probably teaching your course. So let's say a person is teaching you databases and they have database, like they run their own research agenda in databases. They have their own problems that they're interested in. There it becomes kind of simpler where you do well in the course, you solve the harder problems in your assignments and so on. And that automatically signals to the instructor that, yeah, this student is serious and they're ready for slightly more involved, serious stuff. And then they'll probably, you go talk to them saying, hey, do you have a project that I can try out, which is in line with the course content that we just did? Probably they will. And you can get started over there. And that's a great way to get started. However, 99% of us will likely not have that kind of opportunity. So either the professors will not probably have any active research interest, or even if they do, it may not be like something that is really like of like a quality which will actually train you to do decent research. So there are all these limitation cases, and more often than not, we'll find ourselves in those cases. And the question then is, what do I do? Of course, like I mentioned, there are these summer programs and stuff that you can apply to. But even before you do that, and even before you reach out to any professor or like a summer program or your own professor, your course professor, what I recommend is going through this step of doing your homework. And what I mean by that is you start with a few problems or like few problems that you recognize from your courses or wherever, and do something concrete about it. So this is broadly the cycle that you need to keep iterating. So you figured out a problem area. So let's say you figured out something in databases. I'll just use databases as a running example, although I have absolutely no expertise in databases. So let's say you figure something out in databases and you've enjoyed doing certain exercises from Tannenbaum or whichever the standard textbook is for databases. You've enjoyed some assignments, doing some assignments. And then you say, okay, what is research in databases? What does it mean to be doing research in databases? So let's say you have some idea. First, try to think of some idea of like some topic that you probably went through in your course, but you want to ask one simple question saying, if I don't do this like this, but instead I do this like this, will I learn something new? It's a very simple concept. Probably it is worthy of like a lab exercise, nothing more serious. You may sort of fail to like label it as research. That's perfectly fine. That's a great way to start. But once you've identified like what that area is, you need to quickly get into this prototype stage where by prototyping, I simply mean you actually hands-on implement stuff or like write stuff. If it is theoretical, you write proofs. If you or like write out like your arguments. If it's more systemsy stuff, you build things, you implement stuff, you download someone's code, you play with it, you extend it, modify it, whatever. So this is the stage that you really need to quickly come to after identifying having like what you wanted to work on. And then you will work on something and that will immensely increase your knowledge, your concrete knowledge. I keep using this word concrete and I've used it over the last two modules and I'll use it over the next two as well. What I mean by concrete over here is that you have done something very specific and it's not some hand wavy thing that you can say, oh no, I've been interested in brain machine interface. No, that is too broad. That is too abstract. But saying that, oh, I connected my sensor, my hand sensor with some device and I recorded some activities and I printed these activities on this and you get like some analysis from it. That is very, very concrete. And in doing that concrete thing, you're learning about like 20 different things without you realizing it. You're learning about how probably to interface with these machines, how to do this, how to read someone else's code, how to ask questions in a forum. All these skills get implemented. All these skills will get tested and you will get to exercise them actively. That is what concrete prototyping or concrete implementation really means. So that's what I want to convey. So once you're in this stage and you build something, it could be like a simple project that you replicate, and we'll talk about this in some more detail as to what constitutes a prototype. Then you can like take a break and try to find out who's doing something related to the kinds of things that you've done. And in doing so, now you have more concrete information to look for rather than a vague abstract term. So just to go back to some of the finger exercises that we did yesterday, I think someone was saying, I want to improve back propagation or something of that sort. So this improve back propagation seems so abstract to a specialist that you will probably write down, if you implement back propagation yourself, you'll probably have a much narrower question saying, how do I make sure that back propagation happens in O of n instead of O of n square? I mean, I'm just making all these up. Back propagation is not necessarily O of n square, but whatever. But asking this question is now like a very concrete, now you've concretely laid out a very specific problem. So instead of saying, well, how can I improve? You're asking a very specific question saying, okay, how do I reduce the running time of back propagation from X to Y? And that will actually require science, and that may require you to know a lot more deeply. But sure, that's a start. And then you look for some projects or someone who has probably dealt with something similar. You install it, download it, run it, try to understand it. And then that itself will teach you like 20 different things. Then you'll tell, Arey, kya beku sawal puch raha tha? No. That's not a sharp enough question. What's a sharper question is probably this, probably that. So you will course correct yourself, hopefully. And you will then probably be in a much more commanding position to identify who's doing things similar to the kinds of questions that you're asking. So there could be faculty who are working on something very similar. There could be faculty, in fact, I know of faculty, in fact, who are working on implementing back propagation on like a hardware device. So for you to even appreciate this problem, you need to like really understand what the resources that back propagation uses on like a regular CPU, and then try to understand how those resources will change if you use that method on like a hardware device like a Raspberry Pi or Arduino or some such board, because your memory is limited, your compute is limited, everything is limited. So then how do you make the same thing run on this? That could be similar to not only backpropagation, Fourier transform, any of these things that you learn. All these are engineering challenges to translate them to like low resource settings. And there could be like nice, interesting scientific questions over there. So try to identify these kinds of questions which are very relatable to the things that you're trying to specialize in or trying to find out more about, and find out who's doing what. This is where your literature search will come into play. This is where you using Google Scholar, Semantic Scholar, all these kinds of literature surveying tools. That's where this will get you. So all those skills that I mentioned over there, saying Git and learning Linux and this, all those will get used in this cycle itself, which is the aim. The aim is to get you get your hands dirty with these little skills, so that when you do go and speak to someone saying, okay, this is a project that I'd like to work with or contribute to, you already know what you're doing and you're not all hot air. Right? Yeah, no, I wouldn't say brainstorming within own mind. Again, brainstorming within own mind can be such a sink, in the sense that you can get lost in just constantly brainstorming stuff without you actually building anything. And that's the key difference that I'm also trying to convey. So it's not enough for you to ideate, which I'll come to in some slides as well. We'll cover that in some more detail. So yeah, I've mentioned this whole prototype, and this is pretty much like words which describe what I've talked about for the last 10 minutes. And again, the take-home message is just don't be tempted to ideate. Your job is not just to just come up with these ideas. The job is to come up with ideas and then translate them into something concrete. Unless you're closing that loop, it really, I mean, doesn't like help you learn new skills. And what this prototyping concretely can look like is like installing, running a package, replicating results from like another paper, attempting to write out a proof that may already be present somewhere, but you're not looking at it and you're trying to come up with something yourself, etc. This is again up to your creativity on how you want to exercise these skills. But yeah, these are some concrete ways for you to pick these skills up and move from this cycle of ideation. So someone can come back and tell me like, look, I just don't seem to have ideas. And that's fine as well when you're starting work. Even if you don't have ideas, just try to find like packages, papers which people have written, which at least seem to catch your fancy. The abstract looks interesting. There must be some guiding topic or area of interest that will like excite you. Look up work in that. Look up like packages that have been built out and like posted on GitHub and all these kinds of web pages. Install one of them and just start working with it. That itself will like ground your reality to much more like tangible things, and that's fine. But then you need to do the hard work of like then asking yourself, okay, now that I've implemented this, what did I learn? Can I ask more questions about it, and so on. So it's a process and it takes time. It's not like something that you can do in like a day, 2 days, 1 week. It's a time consuming process, but constantly thinking about it, saying, okay, now that I've implemented this idea, what did I learn? What more can I learn? Where can I apply this? That's the harder part. That's what research is all about. And then once you've ideated that, once you've locked in on like what more you can do, translating that and again executing that idea is really what research is. That's it. All right. So as I was mentioning, I mean, these are so most likely, I mean, you'll all or like most academics put out their work. If they're working on slightly systemsy or like if they're building something as a consequence of their work and it's just not a theoretical proof, they will likely build a system and put it out on GitHub or some public facing sort of repository. And if it is like a well-maintained repository, they usually is like under the issues section, you will generally find labels like help wanted. So people, these builders, the community builders, or like whoever has built this package, who are generally academics, because academia, I mean, they are not invested in building something of like production grade and putting it out so that everybody uses. Most people are not. They don't think about it that way. They're like, okay, this is like a neat mathematical idea. I've translated that into code. Here's the code. But some of them will actually put out these explicit calls saying, yeah, people think that they need to implement some other functionality, including our functionality. I need some help because I don't have time. This is not my core area of work anymore. I would appreciate like help from anyone who understands this and like can submit a code patch. So that's why then knowing Git, knowing how to operate this landscape of GitHub becomes important. Then also then another skill that gets used is how do you write these kind of messages which say, okay, I think I have a doubt in what you're asking. Is it this? Is it that? That again exercises your ability to write stuff, to articulate your thoughts. So all these things that I'm showing you, they all contain, yeah, good first issue. Yeah, that's usually some general like label that is used in software projects as well. Help wanted, good first issue, etc. So all these things will hopefully get you started. So the barrier to getting started shouldn't be that high. So it's okay if you don't have like any interesting problem of your own and so on. These are great ways to start off with. And once you dig into it and dig into it and dig into it, you'll realize that it's a whole universe of its own. You could like it, you could dislike it, you could find something else, but that's where you spending active time alone. This is not a group exercise, unfortunately. This is for you to improve your skills first and then worry about like collaborating in a group and then doing something much larger. First, train yourself to be independent and think for yourself and improve your own set of skills. That is critical for you to be a researcher because, yeah, it is very, although research is a collaborative process and you can like collaborate and have like a great experience, you need to bring something to the table as well. It's not enough if you just go to the table and say, oh, I'm great at coming up with ideas. And everybody will say, okay, chalo, big deal. I mean, we're all great at coming up with ideas. So what's the big deal over there? But being able to translate those ideas into reality, that's the skill that you should be bringing to the table. All right, so the message is that once you keep prototyping, you gain knowledge in like your specific area, and then you go into this loop, this other part of the loop, which is trying to find out who's doing what. So use the knowledge that you picked in like building that system and writing that proof and reading that paper and replicating those results, and then you try to find out who's doing what. Now, again, the caveat over here is you'll probably find all the work being done by everyone to be equally fascinating and like saying that, oh, probably I can do this as well, or I want to do this. again, resist from those kinds of, everybody has it, even I have it, everyone has it, saying, oh, this person's work is so good. Oh, this person's work, oh, everyone's work is so good. So let me do this and let me do this. The goal is, again, you're trying to find a voice of your own. Sure, I mean, all these people's work, it's cool, but does it relate to concrete skills that you have? And that's the larger thing that you need to focus on. So if you worked on like a project, let's say you worked on this particular repository that I showed over here, which is like some text attack, some natural language processing application. But you, in your search of finding people, you found someone in databases. Does the skill that you've just learned transfer over? No. Are you finding that databases stuff to be much more fascinating? Probably you could be. In which case you have to again start from scratch, and then pick up a prototype within databases and work towards it and like get some more experience in it. And in doing this, you can spend your entire life. And again, that's also like a word of caution. Don't just keep jumping fence from like one place to another and trying to just again accumulating this kind of experience. You're doing it with like a goal where you're trying to learn these skills and applying it in interesting, creative ways. And that's the demonstration that people are looking for. Once you learn something, once you, let's say you learn this, let's say text attack or whatever, see in what way you can implement a novel creative idea, see in what way you can extend it, which no one has told you to extend, but you can figure out yourself. That's the larger goal that you're getting towards. And that is expertise. That is concrete expertise in like this particular area. And then the the reason why I'm emphasizing all this is that concrete expertise and experience will help you have a conversation with someone, with a prof, with a researcher in like a lab, anywhere. You're using that base to start a conversation. So you have done this text attack stuff or whatever, and you realize that, oh, you it works for these kinds of languages, but it doesn't work for these kinds of languages. It may be a very naive question to begin with, but sure, you at least have something to talk about. Much more than, oh, I'm just interested in your project, so let me come work with you. And much better than that, right? Because now you have a pointed question saying this tool, this method, attack method, or whatever method, seems to work in this case, but doesn't seem to work in this case. And I tried it out and it actually doesn't. These are the challenges, but I'm wondering if we can actually solve that problem. Then you're on to something. Then probably somebody will take notice saying, oh, you know what, that's an interesting problem. You know, let's chat more. I want to hear what you have to say, and I have some thoughts. That's how all these things organically grow. Instead of like saying, oh, I want to do a research project with you, and this is what I can do, and this is what you can tell me what you can do. But yeah, your very first experience may not be as sort of idealistic or like whatever, or as nice as this. Your very first experience will probably be, but yeah, what I would recommend is you doing this kind of homework even before your very first experience. Get some sense, work with some things and like get your hands dirty a little bit, and then go tell a prof saying, okay, these are the things that I've tried. The prof will likely appreciate it, or the researcher, whoever you go mentor you go to, will appreciate that you've already done your work. But that may not be the work that they may have in mind for you to contribute to, and that's fine. But you've at least learned a couple of solid, concrete things, and that is the goal. All right, so we also gave you this exercise in your homework. I'm not sure, not many of you did the homework, which is unfortunate a little, but I would strongly urge you to do it. Because these are the kinds of skills that will get used, irrespective. And these are the hard parts of the course where you're actually being asked to do stuff rather than just sit and listen to me yap about these concepts. So we in the homework you would have seen a reference to CS rankings. CS rankings is again a professor who has taken the initiative to put this website up. Just to consolidate information on like the different areas of computer science and who's doing what. So it just becomes easier to search for like the people who are active in like a particular research area. And we had also asked you, one of the related questions in the homework was like, name the top publishing venues for area X and area Y and area Z. So if you read the course webpage on like publications, which is module 4, I have actually posted links to the specific URLs, which is the backend code of CS rankings, which actually lists out the area and like the specific publication. So PLDI, POPL, all these are venues where people, researchers publish, and which is considered to be serious, and like the peer review is very strong for these venues in the area of programming languages and software engineering. So you go through this list, you'll learn more about like what these areas are and why do you need these areas. You just need them so that when you read a paper, here's the thing with these papers, there is 99% of the papers being written over there is like just just rubbish. It has become like a industry where people just put out like whatever, and there are all these low quality predatory journals and publication venues which people keep submitting to, and it's all there on the web. It is filled with people just doing these like submitting to these venues because it helps them build their CV, and their promotion is tied to it, and there are all these like nasty. The ecosystem is built out in like has evolved in like a nasty way. So one way to know which are the top 4 or 5 venues or 10 venues in your area just makes it like credible. I mean, you're just finding papers or like finding ideas which are credible, which researchers think are serious enough to pursue and like discuss. And you're better off like working on those kinds of ideas than like some random uh, publication in some random venue which nobody would have read seriously. They wouldn't have been careful scrutiny, internal scrutiny, and as a consequence, yeah, it's just like very low quality. So you won't have any new ideas with it. So that's my note on like how to find. So yeah, there are these 2, 3. Yeah, so you see, for NLP there are these venues. For information retrieval, there are these venues. Computer architecture, these are these venues. So this has been mentioned on the website itself, but it's in the backend. I don't think you can readily see it on the web page, the front end of the landing page of the web page, but it's all there. I mean, that's how this website is using. This is the information that the website uses to actually populate who's doing what. So they list only those people who are like likely publishing in like these top venues, which have like a very serious review process. So and it's a proxy for being credible. That's it. So yeah, so as I mentioned, this entire process can sometimes be a little random, where you worked on something X and then you found out like a professor who doesn't really work on X but works on Y, but you immediately relate to it. You can clearly see that, oh, there is something interesting to do over here, and that's totally fine. But as soon as you identify some professor or some area of research that is happening, you need to quickly move to prototypes. It's not enough for you to spend like 6 months just trying to find out who's doing what. I have made this mistake in the past when I was in my undergrad. These are the kinds of things I used to do. Not focus on like actually doing hands-on stuff and prototyping stuff, but rather just finding out who's doing what, because I was starting from zero information. No one was. I didn't really have anyone to speak to who could like tell me these things in like some detail. And as a consequence, I just ended up not wasting. I wouldn't call it waste, but I ended up spending a year probably just trying to find out who's who and who's doing what. And probably a much more pragmatic way to go about it is, sure, you spend some time trying to find out who's doing what, and it can be overwhelming. But once you at least get some sense of who's doing what, quickly switch to like getting concrete experience in that domain. And then you can go back and forth, and it takes time. And let me tell you, all of this will take time. And all of this is hard. None of what I'm saying is like a walk in the park. None of what I'm saying is like can be done in like a week and you'll be this expert in doing all of this. It'll test your patience, it'll test your perseverance, it'll test your persistence, because it's a discovery process, right? Nobody knows what you like, what you don't like. And as a consequence, no one has written out this journey for you. And you're in this process of discovering things for yourself. And it'll take time, and that is fine. That is why it is in your interest to start early. It is in your interest to start in your, let's say, sophomore, in your second year, in your third year, junior, like things like that. Because the earlier you start, the earlier you can give yourself the flexibility to be completely off the mark, meander around, don't think about it for a few days, then think about it again. Just give it that time to that thought and that ideas and the concepts to fester in your mind. But it is hard. All of this is hard. I mean, it's very easy for me to sit and say, you know what, like, find some topic and some extension and like go ahead and try this prototype and go ahead and do that. It's all hard work. It's all hard work. Because nobody's telling you how to do it. Nobody's telling you like holding your hand and like telling you exactly what to do and how to do it. It's just like tedious work. But if you're getting a kick out of it, if you think you're learning, if you think it is igniting your curiosity where you want to learn some more, want to learn some more, want to learn some more, then probably that's a very encouraging sign that you will enjoy research in the longer run as well. These are the signs to look out for, right? And yeah, my concluding thought in all of this, which goes back to like brainstorming and the idea of brainstorming, etc. Your actions matter at the end of the day. It really, I mean, I can't emphasize this enough. I've been a victim to this myself. And that's why I see much more value in it now, because I made these mistakes in my past. And of course, I mean, this is not like a session where I'm saying, oh, I've done this, so you should do this, or I have not done this, you should do this. But do appreciate that for someone to evaluate whether you're an expert in a topic, it comes down to actions and like the kinds of things that you worked on, which will give them like a very real sense of like what your true expertise is, rather than you claiming and boasting, saying, I'm so excited by this and I love this and I love that and whatnot. So let this be like, again, something that you take away and like deeply internalize. And whenever you find yourself spending too long just reading about stuff and just like finding out what others are doing and just like participating in all these debates on like social media, on Quora, on Twitter and all these, stop, ask yourself what concrete actions you have at that moment. And very likely there'll be a lot more that you will need to do. Focus on that. Nothing else matters, really, nothing else matters. And your ability to write a good statement if you want to do a PhD, your ability to learn and know who's doing what, all of these are like natural byproducts of you putting in this work, of you building stuff, of you spending time and like concretely working on some ideas. You'll automatically learn, you'll naturally learn, organically learn about all these other aspects. So yeah, that's essentially this whole yeah, sure, it works. I mean, someone's asking like, yeah, putting it up on archive and then like pushing it out for publication. Yeah, sure. I mean, all that works. But most people who do start off with may not have the maturity to write stuff on their own and like push stuff out on archive. And archive, for those of you who don't know, it's just a web page where you can write a paper without even submitting it to any of these conferences. You can just use, and that's a web page that you could use to just like document stuff that you're writing. And that's fine. That's totally fine as well. But again, paper writing needs to be like paper writing needs to it follows after you've like done concrete work and you have interesting results, or like whatever. There has to be a decent amount of work that would have gone into like building something, thinking about something, concretely fleshing some things out, and only then will you be thinking about like a paper and stuff. So and if you're just starting off, again, don't even worry about papers, and that's a separate topic that I'll talk to in some bit in a while. But this is the core skill that you really need to focus on. And this comes to this, we come to this point where now that you've actually worked on something and you've concretely gained expertise in like some very narrow area, and that expertise may not be like a deep expertise, but at least it's enough to start and engage a conversation. Now you can consider thinking of like, and then if you've come to a point where of self-realization where, yeah, you think you know enough, but now you want to do a project and you want to try something more serious with like a prof who's doing something in this area actively, then you should consider reaching out to them. For sure. I mean, then you should definitely consider reaching out to them. But the way you do that, that's right. I mean, that's a great point on archive as well. So yeah, again, for those of you just starting out, don't be overwhelmed by archive and all these other sort of publishing venues. Even if you write it out on like a simple Word doc, take a PDF, put it out on your webpage, more than enough. Don't worry about, don't be overwhelmed by all these structures and concepts. Start small, start basic, first principles, more than enough. And when you do consider reaching out, you need to like be extremely precise and then make use of all the knowledge that you've already gained and convey that knowledge in a meaningful way. It's unfortunate if you've worked on all these beautiful things, have picked up all these different concepts, you've identified some small threads here and there, but you don't express that like in an efficient or a concise manner. And then you kind of the job fails to do. I mean, you fail to do your job there as well, in the sense of your goal was to communicate that I've learned this thing, I've played around with this thing, I want to get your opinion on X, or like let's try this out. But if you're just not able to communicate that in an email because of a lack of training, then all that effort kind of goes unrewarded in some sense. So now let's just go through one or two examples of like these are your own peers who have submitted their homework. Now, again, let me throw this word of caution out there. And some of you may be on this call. Please don't take it to heart where we all come together and like review it and then try to poke some holes in it. This, again, by no means should reflect a shortcoming or like some inability in your like ability to express ideas. We will all go through it, and I respect your decision to post this homework much more than those who didn't, simply because you've tried things out. You're already a step ahead of your peers in this exercise because your peers thought probably that they could do it, uh, and usually that kind of thinking just doesn't translate to real skills. And I congratulate you, and I deeply appreciate the fact that you actually tried this out for yourself and you submitted something for me to evaluate, for us to evaluate. And don't take it to heart if we discuss it. This is, again, the whole point of this course is make mistakes, make a lot of mistakes. We are here to learn from each other and like use each other to like improve ourselves. So that's the perspective in which I've put up these examples. Of course, I've anonymized it and whatnot. So you won't be identified individually, but if this is yours and if you realize that people are like pointing out all these things, don't feel bad. It's okay. Great. It's great that you have like a free service where someone is coming together and pointing out all these like little things of where you can improve. Use this as a thing for you to level up your skill. And for those of you who didn't submit, I strongly urge you to submit, simply because it will force you to go through that activity of like doing these little sort of tasks, which you'll invariably end up doing at some point. You might as well get some runway and get some exercise and uh, experience in doing so. Okay, so this was one of the submissions. And I've tried to anonymize it a little bit, but probably not. I didn't do a good job. But doesn't matter. Why don't you all go through this? I'll give you like 2-3 minutes. Just read through it, and let's again discuss like if you were to take like a second shot at it, how would you improve it? Where would you improve? What kind of things would you include? Would you not include? And so on. So let me just give you like 2-3 minutes to just carefully read through the stuff. Okay, does anyone want to share their thoughts? I mean, feel free. You don't have to write it down or anything. You can just like unmute and we can just have like a discussion on this.
Hello.
Yeah, go for it.
I think that in the first mail, it won't be right to just ask for that I would like to do research project in collaboration with your ABC on secure computing. Rather than this, I think it would be better if he or she had asked for some more clarification on the work which he is working on and which is taken from which the professor which he is contacting is had already worked upon.
Okay, I think your mic it probably is not super clear. I got most of what you said, and there's also a lot of background noise. If you could probably mute yourself, that'd be great. Yeah, I think there's some feedback or echo going on because of which your voice was not super clear. But yeah, I got the gist of like what you were saying. You were like trying to convey that yeah, probably some more details would have helped. But okay, let's do this. What did you? Let's start with like things that you've liked about it, and Bruno, if you could probably yeah type out because I think there's some disturbance and it's your voice is not very clear. So in case you want to like convey something, please feel free to type stuff out. But let's start with like what you liked about it. Like what did what in your opinion did this person do right? Let's start from there. I mean, it's always very easy to criticize stuff, right? But let's also try to understand what was done right and what you think you really liked about it. Uh, and if yeah, people are in like a noisy background or whatever, feel free to type. But if you aren't, feel free to unmute yourself in chat as well. No one. This person didn't do anything right. Yeah, the explanation on how he correlated his work with that of Prof. Yeah, fair enough. So this person seems to be working in like a very specific area, and the Prof this person is reaching out to is also likely seemingly working in the same area where they have something very concrete to talk about. They're saying, I'm experimenting with Grameen framework, whatever this framework is, one of the methods explored in your work. So that immediately shows that this person actually has read their work, is not like bluffing. And this is like a framework that is already being used in their work. And this person is experimenting with it to port some basic application to the Intel SGX enclave and make it work with some server authorization scheme. And they're trying to back up this interest by saying that my core job, the job that I'm working on, I already do like DevOps and like cloud security and so on, which is exactly the kinds of applications which these kinds of research questions will be interested in. So this is in the broad space of cybersecurity, cloud security, etc. Again, cybersecurity is so wishy-washy a term these days that people don't really understand like what the core technical researchy problems that exist that are being explored, but rather there are all these fluffy talks and videos and whatnot on cybersecurity. This is a very concrete suggestion or like a concrete direction at least being pointed to. I love this about this particular draft. They immediately got to the point. You'll notice that there was absolutely no like wasting time really. Just one sentence saying I'm whatever and a software engineer in whatever. Probably even this was not required. Why? Because they already say as part of my job, I'm currently doing this. So you could have, again, go through the exercise of being concise, conveying all this information with as terse, not you don't have to be terse, but as precisely as possible. And think of this from a person who has probably not more than 2 minutes to read your email, because that is the kind of workload that most of your faculty and researchers have. They have like 30, 50 emails from random people to respond to. Make it quick, to the point and quick. So you could probably have omitted this, you could probably have omitted this. I don't know, I'm X, sure, but yeah, whatever, because your name already comes up in the email. So you're just adding more information about yourself. Or you could probably avoid this and just mention this. That will automatically set the context. Or you could just start off with hi. Now, one other thing is this whole capitalization of hi, sir, madam. Again, very Indian style. It's only us who seem to use this kind of usage, have this usage of like mentioning or like salutation or whatever. Unnecessary. Just like it's good that you respect the person that you're writing to, respect them through your work and the work that they do. All these kind of like gestures doesn't add any additional respect. Sure, you want to be considerate, but writing S as like small s, which is what the English language dictates. If you're using some other language, follow the rules of that language. It's like this, you don't have to create your own like symbolisms to show that, yeah, I greatly appreciate someone else's work. Just say hi, sir. You don't want to say hi, sir, hi, prof, whatever. That suffices. Nobody is going to look at this and say, oh my God, this person respects me so much, and this is the ego boost that I'm getting for the day. This is not my cup of coffee for the day. And in fact, this will rather may work against you, saying, oh, I'm getting one of these other, again, one more of these emails of like people just writing, oh, hi, sir, madam, respected sir, madam, and stuff like that. Right? So just start, okay, hi, sir, I'm so and so, and say which paper that you read. If you've read a particular paper, I find one of the methods of putting to, I've gone through some of your works. Which works? Be precise, concise. And why are you telling this information? What are they learning from it? Right? Sure, I've been through some of your works. Big deal, good. Of course, I've made it public. You will go through some of my work. So what is the information being conveyed? Think that they don't have more than 2 minutes. And within 2 minutes, you want to get their attention, tell them something quick. And if you have something to ask of them, you ask them. So no stories, no harikatha, no nothing. Just come straight to the point, saying, I have read paper X, in which you used method Y. I'm trying to port it to my application because this is my context. I work as whatever. And unfortunately, as beautifully as this email starts off, it kind of prematurely ends. It ends very prematurely. What next? Of course, this is all fictitious. I mean, you may not have worked for the purposes of this exercise. You may not have worked on it. This is very true. What is mentioned in the chat, misgendering is also an issue. My advisor, poor woman, she keeps getting constant emails, especially from students in India, and that's so unfortunate. Saying, dear sir, Are bhai, like before you send out your mass emails, first don't send out mass emails. It's not going to help you. And before you send someone an email, do your like 2-minute homework of like just looking at who they are, what they are. So we have unfortunately created an ecosystem where this is the norm. I kid you not. I am not overemphasizing. These are not like straw men that I'm putting out there, which are just to draw like a point saying this is how the system is. This really is. This is the reality. Mean, median, average, everything. This is us. And this is what we need to improve upon ourselves. And unfortunately, no one is telling it to us in as many words. And we keep making the same mistakes over and again. That's why this course. Right? So this is great. I love this part. And even with me, who has very little information on, like, sure, I know a little bit about SGX enclaves and stuff. I clearly see that this is like a good fit. As an outsider, I know this is probably, it'll make sense. This conversation, if it goes on, will probably make sense. Because clearly this person knows what they're talking about. Or at least has seemingly done something that will contribute to a conversation. But unfortunately, what I find missing is it just stops over there, saying, I would like to do a research project in collaboration with you through whatever on secure computing, especially understand your in-house whatever porpoise framework or whatever. So all that you want to do is explore this in-house porpoise framework, why do you want to work with me? I imagine this tool is openly available. Install it, run it, play with it yourself. Why do you need to write me an email saying that, oh, this is what you want to work with me on? This is already stuff that I've already worked on. Why will I want to spend more time on this? Right? This is the perspective that the faculty might be thinking about. And that's the purpose of this conversation, to play that game of chess where before moving that move, you calculate, you make that calculation, see it through as to how that game will end out being. If this is the crux of the email, this really, all this is fluff, I don't care. What I care is this middle paragraph. And I love it that it is 1 sentence or 2 sentences long. Beautiful. Doesn't take me more than 2 minutes to understand the depth of this email. However, what you're asking of me doesn't really require my time. There's nothing that I'm going to contribute in this. If you told me, oh, you know what, then you don't even have to tell all this story. Start with this saying, I was interested in your porpoise framework and I implemented it. These are the 20 issues that I found and this is how I've solved them. I think this could be an interesting feature. Do you have any thoughts? There you're getting me to think intellectually. You're like engaging me intellectually. You're not engaging me logistically. You're not engaging me operationally. You're not making me think, oh, do I have a vacancy? Do I get this person? Do I have enough money to fund him? Nothing. You're engaging me intellectually by saying, okay, you have done work X, but I think this work X can be either improved or something else can be thought about it, something. That's the core. That would be your job if you started working with them. Give me evidence, show me evidence of you being an independent thinker, of you doing things for yourself without being spoon-fed. This is the quality of students that we need to be producing and we need in this ecosystem. And we are all there in terms of general smarts, general technical capabilities and know-how. We are all capable of doing this. But if no one is telling us, if no one is like guiding us to pick this framework and view, like worldview, then it's very easy to not do these things and end up coming across as being inadequate or like being like insufficient in our own preparation. So this is also fine. Please find my CV attached, not required. You don't have to attach your CV. Why do you want to attach your CV when you have your webpage here? Just say, for details on my work, again, huge sentence, right? What is this sentence trying to say? Please find my CV attached and also a quick bio on what projects I've done and education at this particular URL. Please see this for details. I understand the concept of details. You don't have to tell me details means bio, CV, or projects you've done, what your education, not required. One line. For details, please see. For more details, please see my webpage, X. That's it. This is also, what is this? Looking forward to have conversation on confidential compute. And what conversation should I have with you? First, you told me that you want to do a research project. Then you're saying you want to have a conversation with me. Why should I have a conversation with you? What do you know that will make me believe that, yeah, you're going to be like a worthy conversation sparring partner? So your aim has already deviated. By the time I'm at the last sentence, I kind of am now not sure like what it is you want. And all these people are busy. They don't want to respond to something which is not worth their time. Right? So then again, stop and ask whether this sentence really needs to be here. We have a tendency to formally conclude stuff saying, thanking you and looking forward to and this and that. Nothing. For more details, please see here. Thanks, your name. That's it. You don't even have to say thanks. Nobody like feel offended if you don't write thanks. You're just saying, okay, for more details, look at this. I know how to look at web pages. Assuming I'm a prof at some institute, I really know how to look at web pages. So I look at it. So these were my thoughts on like this particular attempt. And I love this attempt. If I'm so glad and I'm so proud of this person who has actually imbibed a good 70-80% of what was already conveyed very hastily yesterday and has actually translated into something concrete like this. That's beautiful. But the extra tuning is what I probably introduced today and the exercise that you did at the beginning of this class and so on. So that is the kind of tuning that is still required and will always be required. So imagine a 3-paragraph, 2-paragraph email is worthy of like 1 hour of your attention, of you constantly improving it and improving it, improving. Imagine like writing a statement to purpose, a grant proposal, or any of these things. Imagine how much just thought and extended thought needs to go into it. So that's why you need to practice all these things. The more you write, the more you engage in this class, the more you interact, and the more you send out your friends saying, what do you think about this? The better it is. It'll help you. All right, so we're already at 40 and I haven't taken questions today. So let's pause over here. Yeah, if there are any other questions related to this, any other topics that we covered today, let's hear it out and we can have a discussion, quick discussion. But if not, yeah, we can go through another example or something. I think we've been through one example, that's enough. I'll probably have like 1 or 2 small topics left to cover today. So, but before I get to that, yeah, if there are any questions, any thoughts, anything that you would like to share with the rest of the class, that'd be great. No, nothing. Everyone's good. This is assuming everyone's awake and like tuned in. So that's a legit reality. Fair enough. Cool. So this is great. Want to hear on the outcome of this pilot project? Yeah. I mean, that would be great. Even I look forward to actually hearing more about this project. So yeah, there was like another submission. We can probably, I think it's on the slides. So I'll put out the slides after our lecture today. It's on the link on the course webpage. Feel free to go through this email as well and share on Discord or like email, like share your thoughts. This is slightly more unpolished than the previous one. Yeah. So this is CS, but all these ideas extend to any domain. So these are all fairly domain agnostic skills, which really I'm trying to convey over here. Do go through. This is slightly more unpolished than the previous one. The previous one, I think, was my camera is acting up again. Seems to be after like the 1 hour 40-minute mark, or it seems to get tired every day. So I have no idea why that happens, but it happens for some reason. Anyway, so let's see. Oh, all right, I'm back. This is slightly more unpolished in the sense that this all again has pretty much the same kinds of weaknesses that we discussed in the previous example as well, but probably a couple more. A lot of time is spent on like not coming to the point. I would like to work on the project, etc. Again, there is no information on like what you have done and like what are the concrete things you yourself have learned and want to contribute to as an idea. And then there is this paragraph, which is again not required at all. I mean, absolutely, it conveys zero information, saying I'm driven and passionate, and I feel that my background and previous experience, I can be an asset to your team. No, unfortunately not. This conveys zero information. You may be really good and you may have actually learned and understood these things, but it's just not sufficient to just write these words. And I would strongly recommend not even just mentioning all of this and coming straight to the point. I have attached my research proposal for your kind perusal. So this is also very like our English. Nobody again, this is need not be this formal. What is it that you want to convey in this one sentence? I have attached my research proposal for your kind perusal. What is my kind perusal and stuff? Just say my research proposal is attached here, or like the link to my research proposal is here. For details on my research proposal, please see. So this is again, these language idiosyncrasies are again something that we need to unlearn. Way to effectively and concisely communicate, something that we need to unlearn, learn. So yeah, this requires some more work. I would love if this particular candidate submits again and just try to keep all the points in mind that we discussed today. The video will also be up, so you can go back to the video, see the same thing, see what all points that we addressed in the previous example, and just submit it again. I mean, the more practice you get, the better it is. So even this person, the person who submitted this, if you want to submit again, feel free. Go ahead and like do an attempt, give it another shot, because yeah, the more time you spend, you're just improving yourself. All right, so let's move on. This is again like a topic which I briefly spoke of, like introduced the last time, and it's this seemingly simple yet like elusive, I would say, initiative to communicate, and our instincts can fail us completely. I mean, so horribly that we find ourselves in a mess, and that mess will lead to more mess and so on. Whereas that entire mess could have been addressed if whatever the matter was communicated very simply. So if you're stuck on something, so this is very common. So someone, your mentor has told you, okay, let's work on this. In your like ego, you would say, oh, yes, I know this, I will go work on this. Whereas you may not really know what to do with it. Then you'll go there, you'll go back. Then you'll realize, oh, I don't know it. Then you're stuck. Then you're like fighting around and trying to figure out, you ask your friends can't help you. And you're genuinely stuck. What do you do then? Our instinct is just like, yeah, forget about it. Don't reply to my mentor's email if they're asking me, hey, what's up? I mean, I didn't hear from you. Have you managed to like work on this? Have you made any progress with it? You just ignore it because now you're too ashamed to say that, oh, no, I just don't understand this. All these kinds of use cases can be very simply avoided. Okay, someone has mentioned, okay, they made a portfolio page. Yeah. So yeah. If you've made a web page, great. Yeah, that's sure. I mean, that's we can look at it, and you can feel free to submit it again. Don't worry about it. I mean, that's a detail that we can worry about later. So yeah, the point being, when you find yourself in uncomfortable situations, and this has happened with me over here. So it's not that, and it's not a cultural thing. It's not like, oh, the culture that we are brought up in generally makes us like unresponsive in general, and like that it doesn't. There's no value to like communicating freely and like being free with your thoughts and so on. It happens to the best of us. We all do it. I will do it. I still do it, and I'm constantly learning, unlearning, identifying, etc. And this happened with a colleague of mine I worked with over here, and like, it's a very natural thing to happen, where if you're in an uncomfortable situation, you assume that the other person will understand your situation, either that, or you just don't want to come across as being inadequate, and as a consequence, you just don't want to communicate. You just let it rot, and like that rotting will cause a lot of complications. So if you're not enjoying what you're doing, if you're like you're like, oh no, I don't want to do this, I want to change my topic, instead of just telling that to your mentor, you will rather go look for some other project opportunities. Then you will try to split your time because you haven't fully concluded your work from this. You still want to put in 1 or 2 hours here, but you're not doing a good job. Then the other place that you want to work on, that you're probably not doing a good job there either because you don't have the time. And then finally, one of your mentors will recognize this and say, you know what, we should stop working. Instead of it escalating to that situation and then your mentor having to do the work of like saying, ab boss, ab nahi ho payega, like let's just stop this. Just be more communicative. Just say, look, I'm not enjoying this work. I've tried, I'm not enjoying, or I don't have time. In all these cases, sometimes this is also happens very routinely with people I work with. They find out something, they show me some results, we discuss some results, and then I'll spot a couple of inconsistencies and that will get fixed, sure. But there could be something that they've done wrong massively, which I couldn't spot, which they've realized soon after. And then I have to do my homework because my assumption is that, yeah, this person doesn't want to communicate with me. So I have to do my homework of trying to figure out and thinking a little more about, okay, what did they show me today? What have they done? And try to think of holes. And then when I ask them this counter question saying, hey, wait a minute, we discussed this work yesterday. Shouldn't that result look like something else? Because this doesn't make sense. And then they'll be like, yeah, I didn't tell you, but I just didn't do that thing. And what you saw was something else. I'm like, Kyun, why? Just tell me that upfront, right? What, how? It just makes our lives easier. It saves me time. I don't have to go and sit about it, think about it like much more seriously. And that improves my trust in you, saying that, okay, even if you make a mistake, you at least know that you'll come and tell me and that we can course correct and we can improve the situation. But unfortunately, we're not trained to do this. We are not taught. That's not our instinct. No matter how extroverted we are, no matter how vocal we are as a person, as how social we are, that has got no correlation with like your discipline in just communicating and your ability to communicate in like tough circumstances. And that's a skill that we need to pick actively. And this is what I really want to emphasize in this. Publications is again like something that we have discussed, I think indirectly through the course of this module. So the goal should be to, of course, write down material, create a portfolio. Now think about like, and many people believe that for you to get into like a good PhD program or like get into like a research group, you need to have publications. There are 2 or 3 things about publications that all of you should know. One, as I mentioned, 99% of the publications out there are probably fraud. It's unfortunate. That's how the industry has come up. But they're all predatory where there is no peer review. So the whole point of publishing is you want the scientific community who are experts in this field to look at what you've done and point out gaps and inconsistencies and get the work to be much more tight. It's much more like accurate and like precise. If there's no one doing like a good peer review, then that publication is almost useless. Then it's as good as like just writing something and putting it out on your webpage, which has its merits. I'll come to it. But the point of a publication is that it's supposed to have this peer review process to it. Most publications, 98, 99% of them, don't have this. Instead, they'll charge you fees. Whatever you submit, they will accept it. It could be in all these fancy places like Singapore and Macau and all these places. And they'll say, okay, now pay 10,000 rupees or like whatever, 500 US dollars or whatever to present your paper and publish it. It's useless. Please don't fall into that trap. Please don't spend money on such stuff. If you end up publishing, it'll probably work against you, because if you show off like a publication which has been published in these kinds of papers, venues, then it just is a signal that you don't really know what a good venue is versus what a bad venue is. It's as simple as that. It's reflective on your knowledge than anything else. I won't even bother reading that paper. It'll just tell me that, yeah, probably this is not great. But that said, is this true that you do need a publication to have like a good portfolio? And the answer is no. Think of why this myth has propagated and what the perspective is from the faculty standpoint or from the researcher standpoint who's trying to hire you. Given that 99.9% or 99.5% people will not do anything that has been discussed in this course, right? So they'll not probably spend time working on a prototype. They won't go through that iterative process of finding a problem that they think they enjoy, etc. They've not done any of that, but still they apply to grad school, or still they apply to a research group to get hired. But they may be smart and they may have done some research or they may have potential for some research. How do I then hire you? And if there are so many applications, if the number of people applying to me far outnumbers the number of people that I can actually accept into my lab, then there has to be some way for me to filter, right? And publications is like the easiest filter. It's the hardest attainable goal, because for you to actually publish in like a top venue, you need to have all these skills of knowing your CS, knowing your problem, knowing your research, knowing how to write, being good at it, knowing how to deal with reviewers, etc., etc. You need to have all these advanced skills, which pretty much makes you like a full-fledged like researcher in your own right. And that's the bar that they're putting, saying, "Ki, acha, if you've already published at one of these good venues, great. I'd love to talk to you because now you know what serious research is like. You've been through that full cycle. That's great." And that's the easiest. So that's like saying Google coming to your campus and saying, okay, go to Corman and pick dynamic problem, dynamic programming, pick problem number 15, 16, 17, which are like the graduate level problems, which are the toughest problems. And if you solve it, I'll hire you. That's a very easy filter to put, right? Because they don't really care if you have the potential and whether I can train you and stuff like that. It's more of a rejection mechanism than a selection mechanism. So they're not really selecting you, they're rejecting others. And that's the perspective that people use these publications as a proxy as. So if you don't have a publication, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. But most professors or most research lab members who are serious of hiring talent recognize this. Recognize that this opportunity landscape is so skewed that it is very possible that you wouldn't have landed on like a good research opportunity to really exercise and show your true skills. In which case they look at your portfolio, your modest portfolio, your portfolio of things that you have done, which you have enjoyed, which you have like scrupulously sort of like documented. That's the thing that they will look for then. Those are all good signals, positive signals for me. Of course, I will love it if you have a publication, but if you don't, that's okay. I will still look for these kinds of other signals. But if you don't even have those signals, then I'm just gambling with you. And I don't want to gamble. Not a big fan of gambling. So that's the perspective. So my entire the drum that I'm beating saying, okay, do your portfolio, focus on like concrete skills, do projects, do small like prototypes and write about them, share them, build a web page, make a portfolio, act, don't think, like actually act, culminates in it making all these little acts becoming your proof to your expertise. It's just proof of your expertise and makes it easier for someone to evaluate your true worth rather than saying, oh, I'm fascinated by this topic, I'm impressed by this topic, I love what you do, and so on. Right, we are 2-3 minutes away. So let me just quickly, briefly touch on this and I can continue this the next time as well. Not every opportunity that you get will be a good one, unfortunately. Be it in India, be it outside, be it wherever. We are human beings, we are all wired in like weird ways. We are inherently a greedy species. We are inherently like a hopeless species in terms of like how we treat others and whatnot. And it takes a lot of unlearning to get out of our instincts. We are animals at the end of the day. And unfortunately, people in the in positions of power, like a faculty or a research lab member, research mentor, they can they may have like a they may be brewing a toxic environment around them. And watch out, these signs are sometimes easy to miss because you will just think, okay, this is what they expect of me. This is the kind of like, it's okay for them to berate me and like scold me in front of everyone and make a fool out of me and like whatever. It is their way of teaching me. I'm learning. While that may work for you, it generally also impacts your own self-image and self-confidence and like your ability to trust your own self. When someone is constantly speaking ill about you and like talking down to you and so on, or like abusing, sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, these kinds of harassments can come in different shapes and forms. And please keep an eye out. And it's not as uncommon as you think it is, unfortunately. Keep an eye out, recognize it, if it, irrespective of whether it is happening to you or to a peer in your group. Please don't just stand as a bystander. Don't be a bystander and let it happen to someone else. Unfortunately, women have it hard in computer science. It's a fact. It's a reality, and there are like n number of cases that have documented it. And seeing a woman being mistreated, whereas you are fine, doesn't mean the lab is fine, the environment is fine. It still is a bad environment. Likewise, it could be like some people who are junior may be treated very badly and whatever. All these are realities. These are the realities of life. It happens in academia. Academia is no sort of heaven. Keep an eye out on it. Don't let it happen to you or to others. Speak up. There are usually very formal ways to escalate these kinds of problems. I have written more about it on the webpage in the blurb corresponding to this in module 4. Read more about it. But importantly, just walk away. It's okay. If you have invested 2 months of your life in it, 3 months in your life in it, and this person had agreed to give you like a letter or whatever, it's fine. You are better off without it. Don't be under these vicious traps saying, oh, they're like blackmailing you, saying, oh, if you don't do this, I won't give you a letter. Or if you don't like do something else, I won't give it. All that is like harassment, like weird shapes and forms of like you being harassed, and walk out of it. it may be a great opportunity. This person may be super famous. Doesn't matter. It's just not worth your mental space and physical space because it'll destroy you mentally. It'll hurt you mentally, and there's nothing worse than that. It'll just stop you from being your true self, and it'll change you as a person, which is just not worth it. So on that sober note, I would like to, and just bang on time, by the way. I'm so impressed with myself that we are stopping on time. So we are on the 2 hour mark. So let's stop over here. Happy to take questions or discuss something briefly. Or if you have questions, you could shout it out and we can pick it up tomorrow. But yeah, that's pretty much what I had to convey. So if you have any thoughts, suggestions, quick sort of comments, I won't engage, but feel free to voice it out and we can pick it up tomorrow. Okay, now this is like the experiment is coming closer to believing that people are snoozing or like not probably tuned in fully, but yeah, it is what it is. A +1 if you sat through the entire thing and like you pretty much you think you got something out of this, or like yeah you may have benefited or not, whatever. I mean,
Okay, I think now you have your reactions.
okay, great. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, tomorrow is indeed the last day for this course, I believe. Yes.
Yep, that's it. Cool. That's essentially what we had to convey for today. And if you again have any questions, feel free to share it over here, Discord, wherever, and do spend time on that homework because again, these are all little activities for you to get started. And there's usually a threshold, a barrier to overcome in such when it comes to such activities. So yeah, just use this as like a excuse to get started.
Yeah, I think we're looking forward to the homeworks. It's since we are wrapping up tomorrow, this is kind of your last chance to get some sort of peer feedback and, maybe have, again, everything we discuss during the lecture will be anonymized, so you don't have to worry about, sort of feeling called out or whatever. And all of it is just, productive, hopefully. These marginal improvisations. I agree with Shashank that what we already have is pretty impressive. These are just those sort of improvements. I think the suggestions only make things better. So yeah, if you want to have your work reviewed while the course is still going on, which is probably the best time to get it done, please try to get it in a little bit ahead of time so Shashank has a chance to process it and put it up on his slides and so forth. So ideally by 5 p.m. tomorrow Indian time latest. Sooner would be nicer. So thanks very much. Also feel free to keep the conversation going on Discord. I'm really glad that many of us are actually there, and it's a nice place to network. And somebody was talking about doing a project or whatever, and yeah, once again, we will probably not have the bandwidth to be individually providing any kind of mentorship for a specific project, but we'll still be around. And if you're looking for general tips or sort of nudges in the right direction, we're more than happy to sort of make suggestions. But for something specific, if you want to use the Discord group as a means to network and find people who may share your interests, by all means, please go ahead and do that. Yeah. All right. So yeah, thank you so much, Pranod. Also, your inputs have been very helpful and encouraging.
Absolutely.
So,
yep.
Participating and spending your time with us through this week. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So tomorrow, same time, and we will again meet on Zoom. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Mr. Karthik, I think, wait, it's chat. Okay, it's every single day. Okay, not today. All right. Yep.
Yeah, so I think we can stop and we're good to go.
Yep. Yeah.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See ya. Bye-bye. All right. See you, Neil. Bye bye.